Hello! It is Tuesday at 6 o'clock p.m. Pacific, which means it's time for me to get super drunk and read a horrible chapter of Andy Ngo's book where he talks about Black Lives Matter again. Now, most books would have one chapter per subject. That's more traditional, but Andy Ngo is he's a Renaissance man. He's a rebel without a cause. Well, he's got a cause, but he's definitely a rebel because he's decided that instead of doing one chapter, he's going to do two. And it gives me no joy to tell you that both chapters are, they're terrible. They're real bad. So that's exciting. Let's begin. Hooray! Chapter 7, Black Lives Matter. After Donald Trump was sworn into office, Black Lives Matter, BLM, in case you weren't aware, BLM, he's talked about it for 7 chapters, but he feels the need to specify again the abbreviation, which is interesting. Whiskey again tonight? Yes, this is a whiskey chapter you're going to see. Oh boy. Black Lives Matter BLM co-founder Patrisse Cullors was interviewed in the Los Angeles Times. In August 2017, she was asked if BLM would be open to a conversation with the president. She responded, "We wouldn't as a movement take a seat at the table with Trump because we wouldn't have done that with Hitler. Trump is literally the epitome of evil, all the evils of this country, be it racism, capitalism, sexism, homophobia." We got a citation, which is very exciting. I totally believe that she said that. Yes, I would agree. You can't get to 300 pages easily. You gotta duplicate, apparently. Anyway, BLM said this, and we're going to continue for a minute because you'll see the point he's making, you see, is in her own words, one of the founders of BLM demonstrates how closely the organization's ideology aligns with Antifa. So, it's just weird, this thing where BLM and Antifa are united in their hate for Trump, because I feel like there's more to both movements possibly than just hating Trump. I don't know, right? Like, I'm not president of BLM or CEO of Antifa, so I could be wrong. But it's interesting. Good God. Okay. Central to both is the goal of abolishing law enforcement, American jurisprudence, national borders, and free markets in the name of anti-racism and anti-fascism. BLM also seeks to undermine free speech. Where the hell is my sign? Oh, we're going to need it tonight. Yeah, okay, so first of all, citation needed, obviously. And secondly, that has nothing to do with the quote that he just quoted, like at all, like not even a little bit, not even slightly. Apparently being against Trump signifies that you're against law enforcement and national borders and free markets. And I suppose saying that Trump is the epitome of all those things is like kind of similar, so I get what he's saying, but like, I don't know, it's just weird. And then he concludes by saying BLM also seeks to undermine free speech, which, like, okay. Again, citation very much needed on that. It's an interesting way to characterize the movement. I need to be much drunker for this. Just hideously more. In October 2017, students affiliated with BLM at the College of William and Mary in Virginia prevented the executive director of the Virginia chapter of the ACLU from speaking. Live streaming the shutdown on a student BLM page, students shouted, "The revolution will not uphold the Constitution and liberalism is white supremacy." There is a citation. How exciting. They were angry the ACLU had given a principled First Amendment defense of far-right ideologies. This is a really weird leap. Like, in what way is students affiliated with BLM at a college representative of the movement as a whole? Like, I'd like to know. Like, is this a stance that a lot of people take? Is this something that BLM as a movement supported broadly? Anyone? Andy's not going to tell us. We'll never know. I don't... Apparently Andy feels it's relevant. There's a lot of this in this chapter. Wed Taylor didn't mail it. He's just kind of word vomiting to try to get to 300. I don't know why he felt like he needed to do that. 200 would have done. It still would have been horrible, but at least it wouldn't have been 300 words of this, and we'd be almost done instead of like halfway through, which is hideous. Like, I don't know why I started this and I want to die. Someday we'll get over it, and then we'll do something else that's horrible. I'm thinking about watching The Red Pill, but that's apparently not forever. So, Earlier that year, Colors was interviewed by Katie Tour on MSNBC. I've forgotten who Colors is already. Oh, I'm sorry. That's the co-founder, Patrisse Cullors. And for some reason, she's just like plopped into this paragraph, even though this paragraph wasn't about her. But it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Cullors was interviewed by Katie Tour on MSNBC, where she stated hate speech, which is what we're seeing coming out of white nationalist groups, is not protected under the First Amendment rights, which I believe the courts agree. Actually, I think that's, we can argue about what hate speech is, but the courts broadly agree that that's true. So, okay. We got a heading. Foundation of lies. All right. So for the rest of what we're reading today, Andy Ngo is going to talk really in a very ugly and unfair way about several black people who were murdered. So just a heads up for that. If that's something you're not up for, this is the wrong stream for you because Andy's a piece of shit. On August 19, 2014, an 18-year-old black male named Michael Brown committed a strong-arm robbery at a neighborhood convenience store in Ferguson, a suburb of St. Louis, Missouri. Maybe. You know, we do need a citation on that. I believe it's under question. I certainly the strong arm robbery part, like the strong arm part, like I think the worst thing that's ever been said is that he like shoplifted some cigarettes. And whether or not you approve of shoplifting cigarettes personally, I would like to point out that we don't have the death penalty for shoplifting in this country, which is good because most people have shoplifted before, including a lot of the far-right people that read this, and probably shouldn't kill people for shoplifting. Throwing it out there. Wed Teeler on fire tonight. No pun, totally pun intended. Thank you, Wed, for joining us and giving us, Ted's perspective. We appreciate it very much. Yeah, Space Jesus has a good point. We'll never really know. Usually in this country, we give people a trial. It's interesting to ask who's actually anti-jurisprudence in this case. Andy Ngo, who thinks we should kill people for stealing cigarettes, or people who think Michael Brown should have gone to trial. So, shortly after, police officer Darren Wilson, who is white, questioned Brown. Brown matched the description of the robbery suspect reported to police. We won't talk about descriptions of robbers that are just like a black dude. Like that's definitely a thing that happens a lot. You can do research on that. That's a Googleable thing. Anyway, he matched the description. So according to Wilson, Brown assaulted him during the questioning and attempted to grab his pistol, causing it to fire inside the car. And I'm just going to hold up this sign while I read this next bit. Wilson says he chased after Brown, who turned around and charged at him. Wilson fired upon the 6'4" man who died at the scene. Another way to say 6'4" man would be unarmed man, but whatever, tomato, tomato, right? The killing of Brown set off days of rioting and looting in Ferguson, as well as other protests across the United States. With the aid of social media and wall-to-wall broadcast coverage featuring rumors that Brown had surrendered with his hands up and was executed, the BLM narrative was born. And I cannot emphasize enough how much citations there aren't in this section. Like, if you're going to make an astounding claim that everyone in the mainstream news media lied about the hands up, don't shoot thing, you're going to need some goddamn evidence, Andy, or I'm not going to believe you. Whatever, it's fine. From coast to coast, hands up, don't shoot became the mantra that drove tens of thousands to the streets to protest or riot against what they say is institutional racism in policing and the American legal system. Yes, they say it's institutional racism. And it's just a weird claim they made. Whatever, we're going to move on. In November 2014, the St. Louis County grand jury declined to bring criminal charges against Wilson, finding that he was justified in the shooting, which is what usually happens. Grand juries very rarely send police officers to trial even, which is one of the problems Black Lives Matter would like to address, actually, is maybe making it so that the grand juries that decide these things aren't in the pocket of the police union, so that when police do kill people, they can maybe go to trial instead of just getting off scot-free. So, Andy seems to be, sorry, just adjusting the camera here. I'm a little bit low on the screen. Andy seems to be asserting here that it's like that this is somehow decisive when in fact it's literally just the status quo. Like they never find police guilty, like very rarely. Again, I keep recommending it, Behind the Police mini podcast by Robert Evans, really very insightful into what the police are and what they have historically been. In the hours after the announcement of the decision, more rioting, fires, and looting occurred in St. Louis County. Protests broke out across the country in 170 cities. The evidence that emerged in the hearing that corroborated Wilson's account didn't matter. Citation, fucking needed, whatever. Many pinned their hopes on President Barack Obama's Department of Justice to prosecute Wilson. Eric Holder, the left-wing attorney general, made statements openly sympathetic to Brown and BLM, but to the disappointment of many, the report produced by the DOJ in 2015 further exonerated Wilson. How? Physical evidence, ballistics, DNA, and vetted witness statements. We finally have a fucking citation. 256 is, okay, so it's the U.S. Department of Justice report. And I don't know. I haven't read it. Maybe it totally exonerates Wilson. It seems to me that should have gone to trial. It seems to me that a grand jury shouldn't have been responsible for deciding his innocence. I don't know. Either way, it wasn't about Michael Brown. Like, it was about Michael Brown, right? Like, it's a problem that Michael Brown was killed over some goddamn cigarettes. That's a pretty big deal. But, like, it's not like if somehow the Black Lives Matter protesters had been, like, convinced that Michael Brown didn't do it. Or, like, sorry, I'm not speaking very clearly. If Michael Brown somehow had attacked this police officer in a way that he legitimately feared for his life and legitimately had to be shot, then they would have been like, oh, I guess there's no problems. Like, that's not how it works. Like, the problem is that if you look at the statistics, black people die at an incredibly higher rate than white people in police shootouts. Not like number to number, but like proportionate to the population. Yeah, exactly. It was a symptom of a bigger underlying issue, yeah. We've got a question whether I'm mad that the Boulder shooter isn't white. Why the fuck would I be mad about that? I'm mad he killed 10 people. This is why I keep saying Colorado's a hellhole. Like, nobody should live there. I grew up in Colorado. That's why I'm so fucked up. Like, no one should go there. There's something in the water. So yeah, Sam Crow, thanks for your question. Thanks for listening. Hands Up, Don't Shoot was a myth perpetrated by Brown's friend Dorian Johnson, who was found to be unreliable by investigators. Citation needed. Also, if you look this up, like, not really. The police found him to be unreliable. The police who killed his friend found his friend to be unreliable. It's a shocking situation, and no one could have seen it coming. Other witnesses who claimed they saw Brown surrender admitted they had just repeated rumors they had heard from the media or others, and I cannot emphasize enough how much this isn't fucking cited. It's just bullshit. This is like right-wing media bullshit. If you go on the Google machine and look it up, like, I'll put in the description afterwards. I had a big list of them and then I didn't put them in the description, but if you look at the replay after this, I will put them in there. It's just way more complicated than Andy Ngo is making it out to be, as usual. And I hate this. I hate this so much. This is also a real good time to bring up that in his first BLM chapter so long ago, Andy cited like a couple cases that very few people had ever heard of as like the entire reason for Black Lives Matter. But he clearly had enough material to do a whole other chapter, so it kind of seems like maybe there was more to it, Andy, and that like your initial chapter was a little bit misleading, and then you decided you needed more words, but you didn't want to give credence to Black Lives Matter, so you did 2 chapters. I don't know. I'm not in your brain. I'm not psychic. Maybe it was something totally different. Maybe this is some kind of avant-garde gonzo shit that I'm not familiar with. I'm not a New York Times bestseller. What the fuck do I know? Let's keep reading. That so few Americans are aware of the true story behind the death that made BLM a household name and top political issue demonstrates the power of storytelling. Which is great and cool, because that's exactly what he's doing here, is just telling a story with no citations, and then people will just believe it forever, and they can cite it in their own books and perpetrate this absolutely ridiculous bullshit. This is fine. Continuing, it wasn't just Brown who benefited from false narratives, but also other deceased or injured figures posthumously adopted as martyr figures in BLM. For example, Trayvon Martin and Sandra Bland. That's right, Andy Ngo is gonna argue that the teenager murdered for walking home with some fucking Skittles was not a martyr and in fact deserved to die. Yeah, no, that's gonna happen. It's coming up. I previewed this chapter a little bit, so like buckle in for that shit. Also, Sandra Bland, who killed herself in extremely suspicious circumstances in a jail cell. I guess that was also fine. Andy's got very interesting morals. It's a very different system than I'm familiar with. I've read a little bit about religions, a few, and I don't think they would understand either what's going on here. Freedom of religion, though, if he wants to be an asshole, I guess that's, apparently, he can just do that for free. The most devastating consequence of BLM is that it provided the outlet for radical Marxist views to enter mainstream American media, politics, and society under the guise of racial justice. And now we're going to learn about that. So just to review, BLM is secretly Stalin. Wanting the police to stop killing black people is literally Stalinist communism. Oh, thank you, Space Jesus, clearing it up. Believe that's true. Red Taylor also pointing out that the PPB, the Portland Police Bureau, also likes to tell stories. They are very good at it. And their stories are very powerful, and that local news channels just pick them up and run them without doing any kind of research whatsoever, because what I do isn't real journalism, but reciting a police report and then rolling back over and going back to sleep is. Not that I'm bitter at all. The next the next heading is entitled Marxist Ideology. So you know this is going to be fun. Andy really understands Marxism on a very deep level, as we've learned in previous chapters. BLM is usually presented as an anti-racist uprising and movement focused on countering anti-black police brutality and, in quotes, systemic racism. Oh boy. This effective branding strategy in the name has masked BLM's true radical ideology. Well, go ahead, Andy. Let's unmask this shit. Let's do it. The slogan is very difficult for anyone to disagree with, says Carol Swain, a retired political scientist who taught at Vanderbilt University. Citation. Good job. You quoted someone and cited it. Good job, Andy. I'm very proud of you. Swain, a retired political scientist, Swain, who is black, is a scholar of American politics and law. She has spoken critically about BLM and its laundering of radical Marxist ideas into the mainstream. For her outspokenness, she was protested by students at Vanderbilt and subjected to demands she be fired. There's a citation at, I believe that. Swain ended up taking early retirement from Vanderbilt in August 2017. She tells her detractors and critics to simply read the material BLM and its leaders have published to see the truth. Indeed, on-record statements and writings made by the group's three founders, Alicia Garza, Patrick Cullors, and Opal Tometi, demonstrate their agenda to mainstream hatred of law enforcement, capitalism, free speech, and the United States itself. Couple things. Let's go through that list. A hatred of law enforcement makes sense. Not like if law enforcement were killing people at rates that don't make sense, and if they seem to be able to do it with impunity, and no one seemed inclined to do anything about it, and police officers put up the blue wall of silence to stop anyone from doing anything about it, and if police unions exerted way too much power over policy on county and state levels, you might hate them. That might be actually very much linked to the racial justice thing. Might be linked to anti-black police brutality. Capitalism. You could argue that the police exist to defend property. You could argue that the ones that didn't start as slave catchers, which is also a defense of property, disgustingly enough, began in the North to defend property and not people. And you could argue that the capitalist system basically necessitates this kind of law enforcement. You could argue that that would be a cause of the law enforcement that you hate. You could argue that. Make a very compelling argument for it. Andy won't explore that argument here. He'll just assume that anyone reading this book agrees that capitalism is good, actually. So debate, Andy. It's a debate. Yes, we've got capitalism, free speech. I think just the hate speech part. And some people, some of the colleges, I think, seem to go a little bit overboard on that. But again, Andy, at no point in this that I've read, it makes any kind of coherent claim that this is held across the board. Like, I don't know if y'all have met 18-year-olds. No offense to 18-year-olds in my audience. It's not because they're bad or silly. It's because they don't have a lot of life experience, and sometimes things get a little weird. Anyway, that won't be my most popular take, but there it is. I'm not sure I'm convinced that they hate free speech, but maybe Andy will convince me. Let's find out. And then, of course, the United States itself, which, okay, Andy, whatever. Seems like the United States has some problems. I'm not sure hating parts of the United States is necessarily a bad thing. I'm sorry, Wed Taylor brings up a very important point. When I said immunity, I did not include the paid time off that officers get for shooting people, which is a terrible punishment. And I am sorry for making light of their burden. It is very difficult to have paid time off. That's why I don't get any. If this sounds familiar, Andy continues, it is because these are also core ideological components of Antifa, with one notable exception being that BLM is not necessarily opposed to the concept of a nation state if they are at the helm. Oh boy, that's a claim. I wonder if Andy will prove it later. He doesn't. BLM was founded in 2013, which is interesting because he just told us that 2014 is, I guess he said that's when BLM became a household name. Okay, all right, never mind. BLM was founded in 2013, here we go, shortly after George Zimmerman was acquitted in the shooting death of black teen Trayvon Martin in Florida. Zimmerman, who is Latino, was found by a jury to be defending himself from Martin, who was beating him on the ground. No, that, first of all, I believe that's very contested, but it also elides the entire incident that precipitated the confrontation, where Trayvon Martin was walking home from purchasing candy and a soda pop, as I do often, and then this fucking asshole, George Zimmerman, decided that he constituted a threat based on carrying Skittles and I assume being black, because there's nothing else of note about a young man carrying Skittles home, and then followed him and screamed at him and chased him. And then there was an altercation where I hope Trayvon Martin defended himself, because he should be able to do that. A lot of these people support Second Amendment right to self-defense. It seems like Trayvon Martin should also have that right, but maybe I'm missing something here. Also, can we talk about this thing where Andy Ngo and a lot of other people on the right love to do this thing? George Zimmerman, who is Latino? Like, y'all accuse us of doing the identity politics thing, but nobody does it worse than you. Like, as though George Zimmerman being Latino somehow means that he couldn't have been racist. That's not how any of this works, like, at all. It just, what an absurd claim. Like, that's the problem, is that they think that is what identity politics is, and then they try to use it themselves, but they don't really get it. Like, because they refuse to think about systemic racism as opposed to individual racism, they can't, like, wrap their heads around the fact that George Zimmerman being Latino doesn't at all mean that he didn't murder Trayvon Martin for being black. I don't know. Yeah, it is. It's very bold. It's, yeah, no, I'm sure they'll catch it. They're very, very up to date on everything. It's they say facts don't care about your feelings, but it seems like the only facts they like correspond to their feelings. I'm just saying. Since its founding, BLM's leaders have not hidden its radical Marxist orientation. Is that like a sexual orientation? Like, can you be like a Marxist in bed? Is that like being very giving to your partner and like everyone gets a turn? That seems kind of hot. I don't know. Anyway, BLM is radical Marxist orientation. BLM draws from the legacy of the militant Black Power movement of the 1960s and 70s, seen in figures it reveres, like convicted cop killer and fugitive Assata Shakur, formerly known as I don't actually think it's a dead name, but I don't know. It also doesn't matter. In July 2015, at the Blog Her Media Conference in New York, 2 of 3 BLM co-founders led the conference in reciting part of a letter authored by Shakur, which reads as follows, and everyone buckle in for this shocking fucking take, this scandalous take that Andy's going to spend the next page talking about. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. We must love each other and support each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains. And I'm going to pause so that everyone can absorb the absolute horror of those beautiful words. This chant is part of a manifesto written by Shakur in 1973 while she was imprisoned for being an accomplice in the murder of New Jersey State Trooper Werner Forster. Now, real quick, going to be honest with you, this is not my area of expertise. I know very little about this incident. I've done very brief research. I don't know. But this was a thing where they were pulled over by a state trooper, her and a few of her comrades, and then ordered to get out of the car because the license and registration didn't look right. And at some point, the shooting began. And I feel like the BLM movement has highlighted that sometimes traffic stops of black people end in death of the black people in question. And so I am wondering whether I truly feared for my life, it seems like would apply here pretty much. And I don't know. I don't know. It seems to me that the letter is nice. We'll continue to read about this letter. In this letter, she calls herself, that's Assata Shakur, a black revolutionary who has declared war on the rich and all the mindless, heartless robots who protect them and their property. No notes. The line about losing change is lifted directly out of the Communist Manifesto. He cites this. He cites one of the most famous lines of the Communist Manifesto. Can't be asked to cite anything about Trayvon Martin. Can't be asked to cite anything about Michael Brown. But he can cite the Communist Manifesto saying that we have nothing to lose but our chains. Aubrey brings up a very good point. Aubrey, you're a bad Marxist in bed. You're not a Marxist. You're fired. I'm so sorry. But I do support you. Communist sex means art. It's beautiful, you know. The people who come together stay together. I don't know. I'll work on it. We'll workshop it. So yeah, so far none of this seems very damning to me. Like, in no ways does any of this seem to suggest to me a plot to overthrow America. But we'll keep reading. Maybe Andy will get there. At protest, Shakur is honored through the recitation of this chant as well as through clothing worn by BLM supporters. Ooh, we have a citation. What is it? 261. Crystal Lewis Brown, Black Lives Matter co-founders on why the movement is more vital now than ever. Okay, so I don't know. Maybe the article goes into the clothing industry supporting Assata Shakur, but I'm not going to check. We'll assume that's true. I doubt it, but we'll assume. Why not? That Shakur is treated as such a revered figure in BLM is no small detail. Shakur was a member of the far-left violent extremist group Black Liberation Army, BLA. The BLA declared war on the United States and carried out a series of bombings, robberies, and cop killings in the 1970s. Its actions mirrored those of the Baader Meinhof gang. I'm not familiar with what that is. I'm going to look it up. Baader Meinhof gang. I bet you it's white supremacist. Sounds like it. Or I'm just a piece of shit who is judging German names. Who knows? Let's find out. Oh, my bad. No, I'm sorry. Why would I think that Andy would cite white supremacists for anything? It's the Red Army faction, and I do apologize for my ignorance. Looks like it was a West German far-left militant organization founded in 1970, and that actually does... okay. All right. Engaged in a series of bombings, assassinations, kidnappings, bank robberies, and shootouts with police over the course of 3 decades. Yeah, I'm in the weeds here. I will try to do some research on this for next stream. I have a lot of questions about this paragraph. For one thing, the idea that Shakur is treated as a universally revered figure in BLM. I'm not in no way impining Assata Shakur, whom seems fine to me so far. I'm just saying that she's not the spiritual leader of BLM to my knowledge. I haven't heard a lot about her. I just don't think that Andy provides a lot of evidence that all of this attention to Shakur makes any goddamn sense. Yeah, thank you, Flatline 42. You're all over it. Yeah, I'll do more research. No judgments. I'm sure it sounds like they were bad. It also sounds like they weren't very analogous to the Black Liberation Army, but I don't know. I should have done more research. I'm sorry. I failed us all. Shakur escaped prison in 1979 with the help of BLA members who took correctional officers hostage. She later fled to Cuba, where she was granted asylum and treated as a hero by the communist Fidel Castro regime. She is believed to be there to this day. All right. BLM's adoration of communism. That's a fucking leap. Oh boy. So we've gone from BLM quoted Assata Shakur. To Assata Shakur is the spiritual head of the movement. To supporting Assata Shakur means that the entire movement adores communism, and none of those things follow necessarily from any of the other things. I really hate this. Like, apparently you can just say whatever the fuck you want, and I'm gonna keep reading it, but like, just keep in mind that he's way in the fucking weeds here. Like, whatever he says at this point has nothing to do with BLM that he's proven so far, because obviously there have been no citations for a really long time. BLM's adoration of communism is not just indirect through its honoring of Shakur. Oh, okay, oh good, he's gonna provide more evidence. Hooray, let's see what it is. An essay authored by the group on its official Medium blog, titled Lessons from Fidel, Black Lives Matter and the Transition of El Comandante, mourned the death of the communist despot in 2016. As a Black network committed to transformation, we are particularly grateful to Fidel for holding Mama Assata Shakur, who continues to inspire us, the essay reads. We are thankful that he provides a home for Brother Michael Finney, Ralph Goodwin, and Charles Hill, asylum to Brother Huey P. Newton, and sanctuary for so many other Black revolutionaries who were being persecuted by the American government during the Black Power era. I don't have a lot of strong opinions on Fidel Castro, mostly because I grew up right-wing, which apparently I never talked about before a week ago, not that I'm bitter, but I grew up right-wing, and what I learned about Fidel was pretty bad, and I haven't fact-checked any of it. But it does seem to me that it's pretty neato that he provided asylum for people who fought for Black liberation. The CIA was actively attempting to break up those movements out of fear that they were going to, I don't know, accomplish liberation for Black people. It's pretty neato, actually, Andy, that he took them in. So, no notes. All those people are super good. Shaved Ice has a very good point. It is very weird that he has to compare a domestic Black movement to a 50-year-old self from Germany for them to get his point. Like, yeah, it's just a weird move. Just very strange. Absolutely bizarre. I mean, he could have compared them to anything. It's just a weird choice. That's all I'm saying. I mean, at least it wasn't like a movement from 1930s Germany like he did in Chapter 5. That's cool. Like, he didn't try to paint the BLA under a bad light by comparing them to the people who fought the Nazis. So good job, Andy. You've exceeded the bar I buried in the ground for you. Finney, Goodwin, and Hillworth were members of the Republic of New Africa, a militant Marxist group that sought to create a Black ethno-state in the American South. They killed a New Mexico state trooper named Robert Rosenblum in 1971 and hijacked an airplane at Albuquerque International Airport. Africa was their preferred destination, but there wasn't enough fuel, so they instead flew to Cuba, where they were given asylum. I don't know a lot about that either. I really, boy howdy, did I skimmed this to try to do like research on what I needed to do. I missed all of this. I am sorry. I'm letting you all down. Black ethno-state sounds not great, but I'm willing to bet it's more complicated than that, just a fucking theory. But let's go to the real good one, which is Huey Newton. Huey Newton was a co-founder of Black Panther Party and a convict with a violent history. Like, the Black Panthers were super cool. They provided breakfast to kids. They also believed in the Second Amendment, which I feel like Andy's readers should be a fan of, and protecting themselves from a state that murdered them and from people who murdered them. And I'm not going to opine on the Republic of New Africa, but I will opine on the Black Panthers. I'm going to go on a fucking limb here and say that was super cool. He was involved in the shooting-related death of an Oakland police officer in 1968, and was accused of shooting a teen sex worker in 1974. Oh, he was accused of that during the time of COINTEL, where they were actively trying to basically tear down anyone who appeared to be emerging as a, quote, Black Messiah figure, unquote. Like, okay, Andy, you got us all. You owned us all. Good job. BLM is also a member of the Movement for Black Lives, M4BL, a collective of radical left organizations that share the BLM agenda of overturning capitalism and destabilizing the United States. Okay, I don't know. Okay, hopefully you cover how we know that. Let's find out. On its now deleted page listing various demands, the M4BL has stated, and this is a quote, Wed Taylor asked the important question, did Black Panthers murder any property? I'm not sure, but I am amused that possibly the Black Panthers and Ted Wheeler could align on the subject of property. I'm not sure. All right, here's the quote. The interlinked systems of white supremacy, imperialism, capitalism, and patriarchy shape the violence we face. As oppressed people living in the U.S., the belly of the global empire, we are at a critical position to build the necessary connections for a global liberation movement. Until we are able to overturn U.S. imperialism, capitalism, and white supremacy, our brothers and sisters around the world will continue to live in chains. Yep. Yeah, that all tracks to me. It's interesting that Andy Ngo characterizes overturning U.S. imperialism, capitalism, and white supremacy as destabilizing the United States. There's an implication there that U.S. imperialism is central to the stability of the United States, which seems like a pretty dangerous assertion to me. And maybe not dangerous, just damning. I think damning is the word I'm looking for. The usage of chains in this context is again a reference to classic communist literature. Andy, that's not how it works. Like, every time you talk about chains, it's not about Marx. Like, living in chains is, if anything, seems connected to slavery, which is something else you don't like to talk about a lot. That thing that happened in America for like a really long time, like way longer than people haven't been slaves. But okay, Andy. Oh boy, okay, we're going to talk about imperialism, super great. Additionally, accusation of American imperialism harken explicitly to the Cold War era propaganda of the Soviet Union, which viewed U.S. imperialism not necessarily as an expansion of territory, but the spreading of liberal politics, capitalism, and culture. That's the first time we talked about imperialism, really? That's what we're going with here? Like, imperialism was like a thing that people talked about in the 1800s. Like, not as a slur, as like a good thing. The building of empires was considered super fucking neat in Europe for a really long time, Andy. Like, the Soviet Union did not make up imperialism. What the fuck? A good point. He is, of course, living in the empire that was, and so he has, I guess I see why he likes it so much. All right, Aubrey, coming through for us. We've already established you're not a Marxist. You can't, but I guess maybe you are a Marxist because you talk about chains. So now I'm really confused. Is chains in bed Marxist or not? Scholars remain divided. Yeah, thank you. Literally our official policy. Like, actually just stated outright. But facts don't matter to Andy, because to him, everything started, history began whenever he wants it to, mostly with communism. I'm pretty sure there was no history before communism. I don't think anything happened before the advent of communism. Like, in the beginning, there was nothing, and then there was Marx. I'm pretty sure that's how it goes. The anti-capitalism agenda of BLM. Notice how he never fucking proved that BLM and M4BLM are connected in any way. Like, he never bothered to do that. We're just gonna move on like he did. Cool. The anti-capitalist agenda of BLM naturally filters down to its local chapters. Whenever there have been BLM riots, looting follows. Wow, that's just not true. That's just not true. It's just patently fucking false. I believe the statistic that I saw was 97% of BLM marches have been peaceful. Now, to be fair, he's saying that the ones declared riots were followed by looting. I have personally been at things that were declared riots that had no looting whatsoever. It's just fucking false. Just not true. Yes, this is scripture. I've read the Bible. As a good Christian, I'm not a good Christian, but you know, they are, and they've surely read the Bible, and this is definitely what it says. During the summer of rioting in 2020, mass looting broke out in downtown Chicago in August after false rumors spread on social media that Chicago police had shot and killed a black child. Among the thousands of people who amplified the lie, the Chicago chapter of BLM. Excuse me. No citations on the false rumors that Chicago police had shot and killed a black child, of course. If your rules include you shooting our youth, you can't expect people to play by your rules, tweeted BLM Chicago in the middle of the looting spree on Michigan Avenue. Videos live streamed from the area showed police completely overwhelmed as thousands of looters ransacked luxury stores including Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Apple, and Tesla. Some rioters even used a stolen car to smash through storefronts. Now, I'm not an expert on Chicago BLM, but first of all, citation needed, oh boy. And I'm pretty sure, like, I'll look it up, and if I'm wrong, I'll apologize. I have a really good friend who lives in Chicago, and I'm, like, extremely sure he would have told me if this happened, like, because he would have been there. It's fine. Anyway, but okay. No citations. I'm sure it was very devastating. By the end of the night, more than a dozen officers were injured, and around 100 people were arrested. Chicago police and the city's mayor confirmed that rumors of police-involved killing of a child were false. Oh, good, the police said it was false. We have a citation, finally. It's going to be the police. It is... Oh, it's not. It's like a... Police shooting of Inglewood... Okay, so it's like a million authors, and then the title is... Police shooting of Inglewood man reignites political debate and looting as Mag Mile trashed. 13 cops injured, 2 people shot. Okay, let's look this up. This will be fun. Let's look this up. Come on, come through. Okay, it's the Chicago Tribune. And there was looting. All right, I'm wrong. My friend's going to be pissed. Hundreds of people. Yep, the mayhem marked the second time since late May as business orders voted sharp. It's not just people looting, said Patsy Mullins, whose Gold Coast star accessorized was completely emptied. Let's dig to the root of the problem. Let's not look at the surface. Good job, Patsy. I would agree. City officials said the seeds for the crime spree were sown on social media Sunday afternoon after officers shot and wounded a 20-year-old man who allegedly had fled and fired shots on them. So there apparently were false rumors that the 20-year-old was 15, which seems bad. It also seems bad to shoot a 20-year-old. I don't know. All right, so this happened. It does not prove that every BLM riot resulted in looting, but apparently this happened. So, more or less, like, by Andy's standards, I suppose it happened. But all right. Yeah, okay, he's going to talk about it. Police say 20-year-old convicted felon. What does that have to do with anything? Latrell Allen was armed with a handgun at a park where children were playing. When police responded, he allegedly took off running and fired at police. Worth noting, the thing that he just cited said none of that at all. The police shot back and injured but did not kill him. Allen's handgun returned to the scene, matches photographs of him posing with a gun, posted on his own social media. Citation needed. Jesus Christ. Oh my God, thank you, Aubrey. Thank you very much. We're just going to leave that up as I keep reading, as a counterbalance to the bullshit I'm about to lay on you. After the night's mass looting in Chicago, the response from BLM Chicago was to hold a protest in support of looters who were arrested at the scene. Is that what they did? They held a rally outside the South Loot Police Station and displayed a banner that read in all caps, "Loot back." Yeah, okay. So that sounds like they were making a political point. And that, like, there's been a lot of looting that the state has done and that the people in power have done over the years. One example would be slavery. That's one example of a time where that happened. You could argue that the failure to compensate slaves after they were free constituted some looting. You could argue that keeping Black people from investing in property during the redlining days constitutes a kind of roundabout form of looting. You could argue all kinds of things. You could argue that capitalism is a system that just kind of systematically loots from people who are in it. But that seems like a statement of political. It's a political statement, Andy. It's not. I don't know. It's just weird that, like, it's just dismissed automatically as evil. He does this so much where If he doesn't agree with an idea, he just assumes his audience won't either. And it's probably correct in most states. Ooh, thank you. Yeah, civil asset forfeiture. That's another thing. Absolutely. Looting that occurs. I'm so sorry, Wen. This must be very traumatic for you. Yeah, war on drugs. Also, the prison population that is forced to work for pennies a day. Essentially the new Jim Crow, slave labor. It's a book called The New Jim Crow that everyone should read. Yeah. In addition, the group released a statement saying that downtown businesses were the ones that had looted from black communities, and that would be a reference probably for gentrification. Oh boy, does Chicago have a problematic history of gentrification. Oh lordy, does it ever. Whole other video there. Ariel Atkins, a local BLM organizer, told NBC Chicago, "I don't care if someone decides to loot a Gucci or a Macy's or a Nike store, because that makes sure that person eats." Again, I have no notes. I have, that seems real reasonable to me. I don't know. It's probably because I'm a bad person, but we'll move on. BLM's contempt for property rights. Andy Ngo, infamous property right respecter, stealer of all of my videos and all of the videos of everyone that I know, talking about property rights. Let's continue. Is demonstrated over and over in his actions, in the actions and thoughts of leaders in the group. But those still unconvinced of BLM's greater revolutionary Marxist agenda. Yeah, I'm pretty unconvinced, actually. Ooh, sorry, before we continue, very fucking good point. Yes, Chicago police are fucked up. Something Andy does not mention in this book is that I believe over 1,200 people were arrested in the 3 days of George Floyd protests in Chicago in May and late May and early June. And of those, the body cameras malfunctioned in, I want to say, about 70% of the cases of the arrests. And people accused the cops of brutality, which is a thing that happens in Chicago very often. And of course, we will never know because of the body cams being turned off, which incidentally is why a lot of people are against reform. Like, there's this idea that if police wear body cams, they will stop beating people or murdering people when they shouldn't. But the truth is the body cameras just don't work very well. Our technology isn't really prepared for, malfunctioned. Yeah, no, they're very, very sad how technology fails us exactly when we want it to succeed and or when it might indicate that a police officer has done a really evil fucking thing. So yeah, Chicago's got some fucking issues, and I personally am not going to shed a lot of tears for anything that fucking happens there until they fix their shit. We got to fix our shit too, but, solidarity with Chicago. Yes, okay, but those still unconvinced of BLM's greater revolutionary Marxist agenda need only look to the words of Alicia Garza, Opal Tometi, and Patrisse Cullors. How do we stop black-on-black crime? Asked Garza in a January 2015 tweet. First stop by understanding the root. It's not black pathology, it's capitalism. Okay. So his big evidence that this is a Marxist conspiracy is somebody disputing that black-on-black crime, so-called, is black pathology. It's but I guess she's blaming capitalism, so that's like pretty leftist, and that's evil and Stalinism or something. Oh boy. Oh, I hate this so much. I hate this so fucking much. Aubrey brings up another... Fucking, we could do a whole ass video on Chicago. Maybe we should. Just why Chicago's the most fucked place. Anyway, probably not even... It's up there. It's up there. The Chicago police are... Whew. I mean, we like to wax dramatic in Portland and cry about our kettles and stuff. And, obviously, Portland police have some real bad issues. And statistically speaking, Portland police are up there, right? In some ways. But they are so much less brutal and so much less fucking just comic book evil than Chicago or New York or anywhere. And, it would probably do us good to remember that, while we get a lot of the spotlight and while our police are bad in ways that don't, cripple people, it could be a lot worse. Anyway. In July 2016, Garza followed up on the subject by tweeting, "White supremacy and capitalism are the underlying causes of state-sanctioned police-orchestrated violence." And again, please note that Andy feels no need to dispute any of these claims. He just throws them out there with the assumption that his audience will agree. Like, if she was right, Andy, would it be evil? Would you still find it repugnant if she was correct? But that's not something you can even entertain. Like, the point is that she's saying some stuff that capitalism is bad, which means she's a Stalinist, and the whole Black Lives Matter movement is too. Everyone involved in Black Lives Matter is a Stalinist. If somebody would please tell the Peace Police in Portland this, I would really appreciate it. Because I promise you no one's told the reformists who come to protests out here. Pardon me. It might be COVID or it might be that I swallowed wrong. I'll leave it to you to decide. Opal Tometi echoed similar sentiments. In August 2015, she wrote on Twitter, "I'm anti-capitalism and I'm for dismantling of a two-party system that is doing nothing for us." Yeah, God bless the two-party system. Everyone loves that. That's working out great. Ah, you sure owned us, Andy. In July 2016, she tweeted, "I share 3 core challenges we face. 1, global capitalism. 2, white supremacy. 3, suppressing dissent / access to democracy. I cannot believe he finds this controversial." I cannot believe this is like scandalous for him. Like, I can't. I literally think that that's not possible. I don't know. Maybe I've just been in a bubble too long, but like, the thing that's weird to me is like global capitalism is very similar to some of the far right rhetoric of like a global cabal. Now it's different, right? It's a different critique. But the idea that there's like a problem on a global level is not unique. Like, most people I think recognize that seems to be true. People sure go off the rails on that one. They sure go to some weird, horrible places, some real anti-Semitic places. But the idea that saying that there's like a global thing that's bad, and then saying that white supremacy is bad, and then saying that suppressing access to democracy is bad is just incredible. Yeah, that's not like a controversial position. Like, no one likes the two-party system. No one likes it. Yeah, no, Ted does love the two-party system. Although, to be fair, you wouldn't have won without that third candidate, so maybe you should reconsider, Wed. And yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about, is the NWO conspiracy, which, like, again, not a fan, super anti-Semitic. What I'm saying, though, is that the idea that there's like a global problem shouldn't be shocking to Andy, because he's surely heard it before. Let's continue. The third BLM co-founder, Patrisse Cullors, has been the most transparent and outspoken in her radical Marxist views. The 36-year-old was trained and mentored by Eric Mann, a former leader of the Weather Underground organization, a far-left domestic terror group active in the 1960s and 70s. We have a citation. '73. Democracy Now! When they call you a terrorist, the life of Black Lives Matter co-founder Patrisse Cullors. Yeah, I haven't read it. Don't know. But I don't know. I don't know how to respond to this. Next time I'll do more research. I've been kind of a mess lately. I'm not going to lie to you, but I promise Thursday will be better. I should have a guest, and I should have done my research, and I should be a little bit less crazy at that time. Oh my God, Lynn, stop being right immediately. I demand it. Like, how dare you? How fucking dare you be that correct about something? I'm so upset, because that's just, oh God. My heart is breaking. Mann was convicted in 1969 in an incident where live rounds were fired into the Cambridge Police Headquarters in Massachusetts. He served 2 years in prison. So, I'm going to read between the lines here. Live rounds were fired. Seems like if Mann had fired them, Andy would say, now he's not great at the writing thing, but it seems like he would have done. And serving 2 years in prison definitely indicates to me that, like, nobody was hurt. So, okay. Also, there doesn't seem to be any, I guess the Democracy Now! Article maybe says that Patrisse Cullors was tutored by this guy. A lot of people from the Weather Underground turned into activists of a very different sort, but we'll continue because I failed to do my research. I am very sorry. In April 2019, Cullors, who is an associate professor in the Social Justice and Community Organizing's master's degree program at Prescott College in Arizona, interesting that he thinks that's damning, Penned an article for the Harvard Law Review. Yes, the radical Marxist publication, the Harvard Law Review. That tracks. That's right. Oh my God. Yes. Somebody do passive voice control, I demand it. If we have to have gun control, I demand passive voice control, because that is actual violence against the English language. And I, for one, won't stand for it. So this is the art. Okay, so we got some quotes from this extremely communist article from infamous Stalinist publication, the Harvard Law Review. Our task is not only to abolish prisons, policing, and militarization, which are wielded in the name of public safety and national security, she wrote. We must also demand reparations and incorporate reparative justice in our vision for society and community building in the 21st century. Yep. Yeah, no, none of that is Marxism, per se. I'm not saying it's incompatible with Marxism, but Marx, I don't believe, wrote extensively about any of those things. It's just a thing that Andy doesn't like, which I believe is his working definition of Marxism, is anything that he doesn't approve of. So, okay, I guess in that sense it's Marxism. In another sense, it's just somebody stating a pretty popular position. I'm not going to say mainstream, but it's certainly not unheard of. And I don't think that it's indicative of a dark Marxist agenda. I think it's just a policy position, Andy. I don't think that anyone's hiding anything. I don't think you're unmasking anything here. But all right. Colors goes on to describe the United States as, quote, the most extensive purveyor of human rights atrocities at home and abroad. She calls for no less than just the dismantling of the United States. Abolition means no borders. Abolition means no border patrol. Abolition means no immigration and customs enforcement. And let's talk about how Andy seems to think that ICE and the United States are synonymous. I get what he's saying. He thinks that no borders means no America. And for some people, sure. And for other people, we just think that immigration should be allowed, because immigrants are the backbone of our society and always have been, and most people that are here are immigrants. And we didn't do a great job with the people who aren't immigrants that are here. I don't know. I'm not sure that that's calling for no less than the dismantling of the United States. I'm not sure that it rises to that level, Andy. I don't really, I'm not seeing it. Also, you could make an argument that the United States is the most extensive purveyor of human rights atrocities at home and abroad. We've done some real bad shit, like very, very bad. I don't know. Like, it depends on how you measure it. Like, per capita, maybe. Like, I don't know. North Korea might win. They seem pretty bad to me. You can quote me on that. But got a weird siren out there. This is fine. Joey Camp keeps threatening to swat me. Maybe he's finally done it. I doubt it. All right. And if that's not convincing enough of BLM's Marxist extremism, it's not. A resurfaced video of a 2015 interview featuring Colores went viral in June 2020. The first thing, I think, is that we actually do have an ideological frame. Myself and Alicia Garza, in particular, are trained organizers, she said in an interview with Jared Ball of the Real News Network. That is a horrible name for a news network. You can quote me on that. We are trained Marxists. We are super versed on the sort of ideological theories. And I think that what we've really tried to do is build a movement that could be utilized by many, many black folk. So, okay. Being a trained Marxist could just mean that you've had some classes in Marxism. I'm not sure that it indicates the cabal that Andy seems to suggest here. Especially because it seems to be kind of a throwaway line and then moves on immediately to the part where the movement is supposed to be for black people. I don't know. Being told to Google Operation Gladio for the, I believe the quantification of who does the most human rights atrocities. I'll have to do that. Now I'm curious. Anyway, retired Professor Carol Swain, we've got her again, who called out BLM for its radicalism years ago, isn't surprised by the video. Quote, "We see them making progress because you see how easily and quickly police have become the enemy, as opposed to people who are trying to harm others." Same thing. Same thing. A lot of the time. That's the problem. Actually, it's like the whole fucking thing is that it seems to be real synonymous a lot of the time, but whatever. We've got a citation. He cites Carol Swain saying that. She points to the deadly effect on Black American communities when law enforcement pull back from policing and are reluctant to arrest suspects out of fear. Observers have called this documented and studied phenomenon the Ferguson effect. We have a citation, and I have things to say, but let's look at the citation first. Martin Cast, murder rate spike could be Ferguson effect, Department of Justice study says. So we've got some speculation from the DOJ, and then we're just going to extrapolate that into it's been proven. Neat. And now we're going to talk about the study. A 2016 study released by the U.S. Department of Justice and conducted by Richard Rosenfeld, a University of Missouri St. Louis criminologist, found murder spiking in urban areas after the riot in Ferguson, Missouri. And we have another citation, which is documented and explaining the 2015 homicide rise research directions. I'm not going to look it up, but I am going to say that I believe they have found in the past that police slowdowns have actually decreased violent incidents, almost like the presence of armed cops who believe that at any moment somebody, like they've been trained that anyone could be a criminal and they have guns, they've done more time at the shooting range than they have doing de-escalation training, might be a problem and actually boost crime. I don't know. I'm just saying that, like, this is one very small example, and I'm pressing X to doubt all of this, by the way, and doesn't take into account anything else. So anyway, we've come to a stopping point. We're in at an hour. I have a phone call I have to take soon. We're going to stop the stream. Sorry if it was weird tonight. Hopefully Thursday we're going to have some guests and we'll have more fun continuing to learn about Andy's just absolutely delusional shit regarding Black Lives Matter. And that is the evening. I hope everyone is having a great time. I would like to thank my lovely patrons. If you signed up between last time and this time, you're not going to be included because I'm a terrible person. But I would like to read the people that have donated. So thank you very much to Sue Seifert and to Steve Swan. Thank you also to Mr. Zarak, Jordan Jackson, Lauren Massey, Greg Ball, Kenneth Clayton Lewis, Skippy, Dana Sullivan, Tina Kopolowski, Sandra Elliott, Shaved Ice, and Michael Metaluni. Thank you very much as well to Laura Massey, Ben Nothing, Alexander Krigsman, Melissa Murphy, Ginger Nielsen, Paul, James Aitken, Rebecca Spongberg, Ben Begley, RP, Alex Glukowski, John the Penguin, Joey Reinich, and Raina Terror. Plus, I do apologize. Good Lord, I'm a mess today. This is fine. Brent Schrock, Ominous Lodgins, Jennifer Johnson, Burles, Zachariah, Brian Tajuddin, Gentira Alert, Clint Alter, Chaz, Clark, Andrew Kent, Kristen Bott, Holly Jones, Brian Covey, Alexander Snyder, Polly, Nathan Zilka, Josh Vader, Sam Madison, Benjamin Tupper, Dome, Caitlin Johnson, George Taco, Treble Box, Andrew Stimson, Tiffany Vu, Verone, James Colton, Elizabeth Brasso, Ray Ribbs, Luz Briante, Amanda, Sarah Haler, Marvelicious, Zeke, Heather Carpenter, Karen Necco, and Julian. You are all amazing. Holy shit, there are a lot of you. Why are you enabling my bad behavior? I love all of you so goddamn much. I'll see you Thursday. Have a great night.